Good morning. This is Cy Wakeman, and I am thrilled. We've got our webinars back by popular demand. People were loving the webinars we offered a couple of years back, and even though we'd moved on to periscoping and live streaming and all kinds of great new technology, everywhere I went, people asked when I was going to resurrect the webinars. So we have decided to use webinars to introduce what our new work is, and that's around the Reality-Based Leadership Toolkit. Taking reality-based leadership philosophy around the company and actually around the globe has been a blast. And leaders then asked me, how do I get my employees well-versed in reality-based leadership? So we came up with the book on the reality-based rules of the workplace. And as I work with groups, I find that they needed a more concrete toolkit. And so I'm excited to start our webinar series and introduce you to and teach you the toolkit that we've created. And this is a toolkit that grew out of the techniques and strategies I use when I am personally facilitating group work or coaching individuals. And so it's exciting for me to share with you what is some of our newest work at Cy Wakeman, Inc. Glad that so many of you are joining, and I'll tell you a little bit more at the end of this broadcast how to share webinars with others and how to attend a webinar that you may have been invited to but weren't able to make the time that it was presented, because we're recording these as well. I want to give you a bit of background before we get into what I call the toolkit, because I've really grown over the last couple of years to see the role of leadership differently than most teaching on this subject. And as I'm preparing and writing the third book called Reality Check, a wake-up call for HR and for leaders, I'm really getting into some new definitions of what I believe the leadership role is and how it's evolved. The main focus of a leader is to eliminate emotional waste from the workplace. The main way that we can enhance the value that the talent brings to the table is to eliminate waste. And the key techniques and tools and philosophies we have about eliminating waste have to do with using good processes. So if we have waste in the workplace, we look first right to the process of what's creating that waste or allowing that waste, or creating rework that's causing the waste. It's the same with mental waste, emotional waste, which is how we've come to define drama. Drama's become very pop culture. There's a lot of reference to drama. So I wanted to get specific and define drama. And drama is defined as emotional waste. And we know from the value equation that emotional waste arises with emotional expense, and that really is the focus of the value equation, that employees are expensive. They bring emotional waste to the organization when they're not fluent in those 5 core competencies of reality-based leadership: accountability, organizational alignment, reality-based thinking, capitalizing on change, and driving for results. So if a leader's role is to eliminate emotional waste, it makes sense that you would do that with great mental processes. So rather than think about the leadership role as I am going to motivate you, what we know in reality-based leadership is the best motivator is reality. I can't motivate you, but I can quit protecting you from reality. And reality itself is the best motivator there is. You get direct feedback on what's working and not working for you. I can't necessarily inspire you unless it's by my own role modeling. The way I, as a leader, can have direct impact is insist and hold you accountable to and teach you great mental processes. And the toolkit is actually our collection of great mental processes. So how do we as leaders get people adopting and accountable to great mental processes? One is that we've got to think that one of our main responsibilities in our role is to structure thinking. Now, managers direct work. Managers tell people what they would like them to do. But leaders actually structure thinking, which comes long before behavior and actions and solutions. And in structuring thinking, leaders need to really refrain from participating in discussions as individual contributors. So those moments that leaders are at the table with a group or with an individual is a time that they need to be have a great sense of when they're in neutral and when they're not in neutral. And when you're not in neutral and you start to lean forward and you want to steer a discussion and you want to direct and you've got motive, you're stepping out of a leadership role and you're probably entering into a role of an individual contributor where we're all giving our opinions and perhaps our expertise, and I am one of many data points and I'm trying to influence from that place. What that will create, I have found most often, is discussion, not dialogue. So for those of you that you know, are well-versed in crucial conversations, you know that we want to increase the shared pool of meaning at the beginning of any discussion we get into, and that really creates dialogue. Discussion is not changing anyone's mindsets, it's rehashing the same old stuff we've always talked about. And most of those discussions lead to a brainstorming session about why we can't, rather than focus on how we could. And so as a leader, when you're involved in just really wanting to direct this discussion, I want you to leave the discussion mentally and instead step aside and grab a tool to add structure and to really reframe thinking. And the toolkits are a great way to do that. And we're going to teach you 2 today, and I'll get to that in just a minute, because a leader's role is to facilitate mental shifts and mindset reframes. Einstein said something similar to, a problem can't be solved with the same mindset that created it. So if you remember in reality-based leadership, when we talk about troublesome trends, before we jump into how we can impact reality or how we long-term can make some improvements in our processes, we first need to recreate our mindsets. Leaders impact mindsets. And leaders also manage energy around the group. Don't put your energy here, put it there. And a great way to take energy that's being projected onto each other and make it energy that can be used for group solutions is for us to go and take a look at how we could. So as we move through the leader's role, I want to introduce to you the toolkit and make sure that you understand the power of the toolkit. And again, it's that we're going to use this toolkit and over the course of these webinars teach you some in-depth tools and ways to facilitate the toolkit that really introduce great mental processes to eliminate emotional waste. Now, these mental processes, the shadow of a leader, right, is that people will use these processes even when you're not around, that they become a cadence, they become a go-to position, they become a way of thinking, a neural pathway almost, that people naturally move to, because when we're thinking in good mental processes, we're depersonalizing, so we have very little conflict, we're managing drama, and we're moving towards solutions and impact. Then we can start accountability. This is all not things that you've got to convince people to do. It becomes a natural way of it because it's attractive to others to feel good about what they're doing rather than to feel struggle about what they're doing. This naturally leads to engagement. Processes and accountability drive engagement and they drive results. Why use toolkits? I've talked for a long time when I work with leaders about moving away from verbal or oral tradition, moving away from speaking and talking about issues to getting issues out of the mind and onto paper. Byron Katie says all war belongs on paper, and she's talking about her worksheets. She's a great teacher of mine and teaches us the work. So when I think about conflict or disagreement or lack of clarity, those things don't belong in the mind where the ego can spin and play and really do some crazy justification, BMW driving, all the things we talk about wanting to rid ourselves from. You need to take what's happening in the mind out of the mind that bypasses the ego, and you need to put it on paper where all can see, or for those of you working visually, on your visual paper. This can be, and I prefer it, to be clear up on the wall where you either have butcher paper spread around the room or you've got flip charts or whiteboards. And then if you've got people not present with you, you're telecasting to them what's being put up. And this is an old therapist trick. When you are projecting onto somebody, talking to me perhaps as your therapist, and I start feeling the projection happen, the first thing I do is grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I start to draw what you're telling me in front of you in some visual format, and it completely changes the energy. Instead of you orally projecting on me or mentally projecting while you are verbally speaking, what I get you to do is to project on the paper, and that realigns the energy. Instead of it being you or I, you against me, it is now we together, back together, working on a simple challenge on paper. So it's the two of us working on an issue, not us personalizing on each other. So the more you can make things conscious and visible, the more closer to the truth you get, because it bypasses the ego. The truth will set you free. The more depersonalized things get, the more you're able to capture things more specifically, put them up in front of folks so that they can actually join together in a new way to solve problems. And when we talk about the power of belief, if you believe it possible or impossible, either way you'll be right. If you can see it, if we can see it, we can do it. So the reason toolkits are powerful is they make things conscious and visible. They move us out of projection. They bypass the ego. And anytime you're stuck, and meetings are a key place for people to be stuck, anytime you're stuck, you're probably engaged in ego projection, verbally communicating a discussion around what's happening. I'll say my view, you say your view, and we never grow the shared pool of meaning, and we don't have dialogue. So that's what I believe, and why I'm so committed to taking reality-based leadership to the next level, to have these toolkits and these tools be our go-to mental processes to eliminate emotional waste many, many times a day. We've got an entire toolkit, a sampling of that toolkit. We actually is on the website. We'll be giving you the pieces that we talk about. In fact, you've got handouts. If you look at your control panel on the right-hand side towards the bottom, you'll see that the two tools we're talking about today, the placemat and the SBAR, I've given you those two tools in a handout that you can download and use and teach with your team. But that we have an entire toolkit that we have tools for individuals. There are 6 coaching questions. We've got things like a news story exercise, a feedback frame, tools to develop accountability. We've got a lot of fast tracks in there. We also have tools for the team, engaged action planning, negative brainstorming, thinking inside the box. And we're going to keep adding to this toolkit as we document things like our coaching model and other processes we hope that you adopt and use with your team. The first tool I want to talk about is what we call the SBAR tool. The SBAR tool is a tool that I adopted while working in medical communities. I noticed that the nursing profession actually had come up with a very efficient way to brief people that they needed to bring into a patient's condition quickly. They used this when they were calling physicians in the middle of the night, and you had about 3 minutes to talk to a physician, because we want those folks to be able to go back to sleep. And if we aren't efficient, then our whole on-call system doesn't work very well. We exhaust the very people we need help from. And it was a tool that I saw people use for efficiency, but I noticed that it completely took out subjectiveness and inserted objectiveness, which is all about editing your story and all about driving us from the story to solutions. And so I want to introduce to you the SBAR tool, and the acronym SBAR is actually an acronym that I'll share with you in just a moment. First, I'm going to talk to you about the tool, and then I'm going to talk to you about the benefits. Now, this tool is an important tool, and it is one that I use in times of those drive-bys. Hey, Si, do you have a minute? What I noticed about, hey, Si, do you have a minute, or keeping that door always open, is that people would drive by and they would bring me drama. My door became a portal for drama. They would bring me what I soon learned was unprocessed work, the story. Hey, Si, do you have a minute? Have you heard? That's when they would begin the hearsay. I'm not sure of the facts, but what I heard is this, and what I'm speculating is that. And if this continues, then projection, you know, far into the future. The whole story of it was what people brought me. And I looked at that and I thought, that is such unprocessed work. And then here's the trap. I began to use the tools that I'll also teach you about editing the story and other places to help people process, because if we didn't process it and the story came in, I, as the leader, would overmanage. I would be the one to process the story, get down to the facts, figure out kind of what the truth was, and he who processes it, the story, is he who usually takes action on it. And this is a huge trap for how people quickly go from leading to managing, and then they overmanage and underlead. They're fixing reality and leaving people with the mindset that the reasons they aren't succeeding is that they're at the mercy of their circumstances or reality. So by entertaining unprocessed work is the beginning of the rabbit hole that you're going to go down into overmanaging, reinforcing victim mindsets, missing the opportunity to separate out suffering from reality. All of these situations we teach you as a reality-based leader. And so I wanted to make sure that we started first and foremost with one of my favorite tools, the SBAR. The goal of the SBAR is for people to sit and self-reflect and process, meditate on their own situation. Now, the first thing this does is it kills the ego, because the ego avoid self-reflection at all costs. Self-reflection kind of kills the ego. In fact, venting is the ego's way of avoiding self-reflection. So for those of you that have the open door, believe that people need opportunities to vent, you're basically growing and feeding ego, which then is a prime breeding ground for judgment. And we all know when you're judging, you're not helping or adding value. These things are just all connected. So what we want is for people to sit with a template, a mental process to move from story to reality, and to truly take a look at and process the information they're bringing to you so that you can help them and you can coach them on concrete issues, and you can drive things towards action. And that all starts with accepting our current reality, getting our arms around it, so that when we take action, it's not in a way of arguing with reality, but it is succeeding in spite of our circumstances, not backing away and choosing excuses or reasons that we can't succeed. So here's the SBAR in a nutshell, and then I'll tell you how to use it. SBAR, the S stands for a description of the situation, the current reality. B stands for provide me relevant background. A stands for what's your assessment? What's your analysis? Give me some good information here. I want to see your critical thinking. And R stands for recommendation, but I would add, and there's a mistake on the slide, that recommendation needs to be plural. There needs to be an S on it. Recommendations, never recommendation. So let me go through these and let me explain what I mean by this. First of all, in a good SBAR, and this SBAR is short. It fits on a PowerPoint slide. It may have some double clicks where you can get some additional information, but it really is a clear and concise way of briefing someone on a problem, situation, or challenge or conflict. So first of all, the S is just a one sentence. In one sentence or less, let me know what the situation is. This is what I know for sure. The expectation when you bring me an SBAR is that you've looked at the situation and you've edited the story and you have gotten rid of all judgment, motive, drama, speculation, assignment of motive, causal relationships. You are just giving me a sentence about what's the situation. Okay. You're coming to me and you're saying, we just got 3 projects dumped on us, okay? Then my coaching then and there on this SBAR is let's clean that up. We have 3 new projects, correct? Because this is where you coach on mindset and drama. The situation's a statement of facts, neutral, no drama. We have 3 projects that were presented to us today. The next step is the background, and I reinforce as you're preparing the background, as you're processing what to bring forward, this great meditative act is that in the backgrounds, relevant backgrounds is what is connected to our future. How does this relate to strategy? Tie this together. I remind people often they don't work for the History Channel. This is not your opportunity to continue to gripe about how we got here, which is just hidden judgment and complaint about what didn't happen or all the battles you lost in the past that you're still holding on to. This isn't about digging up you know, a treasure trove of blame. This is simply connecting for the person you're asking for help, the relativity of the background. So it might be the situations. We have 3 projects presented to us today. Relevant backgrounds is 2 of those are highly connected to the strategic plan. As you remember, we designated 2 types of opportunities we wanted to grow exposure in, ATD and SHRM, and 2 of the projects are connected into being able to really be prepared for the upcoming annual conferences. See, this is important because it's connecting me to backgrounds. It may be one of these projects is work we've rejected in the past, but we didn't have the same amount of resources that we have today. Whatever is relevant about this background, about the client, about the situation. And then I want assessment. That's the A, assessment or analysis. This is where you get into what might be helpful information, where you sought out the truth, what your critical analysis are, what places you've benchmarked, where you've looked outside the organization for helpful information, what ways have you gone back to the client and asked for their perspective. This is really your research work, your lit review, those places that you've actually been able to pull some good information so that I know you've moved out of opinion and anecdote, and that you've really gone deep to find out in the pursuit of what would please the clients, what do we know for sure, what's some of our data, Have you gone into our data systems and pulled up some quick glances of business insight for us? I want to see how you're critically thinking. So here's where I get a sense of how you're thinking, and I can coach you for how to be more data driven, how to better use the tools we have in our organization, how to use crowdsourcing, how to practice our philosophy of including clients in their own solutions. So far, you've presented me with the situation. I can coach you on drama. The background, I coach you on relevance, and I might coach you in that background about things you might not be aware of because I may operate at a different level. I may have information that, let's say I know that a leader in that particular client is making a career move, but it's not yet open information for me to share. These are times that I can either play the trust card, trust me, I know more about this situation, or I can see where I can educate you and bring you in on information I know. And then when I hear your assessment, your analysis, it really starts to show me how much I can trust you with, where your current maturity rate is in critical thinking, how enterprise-wide your thinking is, where I need to grow you. Are you a functional thinker where you're locked into a silo or a discipline, or your background is maybe an engineer, or are you looking enterprise-wide? So much teaching can happen here. And then finally, what I want in an SBAR is your recommendations, plural. If you give me one recommendation, Si, here's what I recommend, what we need to do, what I feel strongly about, that's opinion. And opinions show lack of mental flexibility. They usually come with a lot of baggage. They usually are ways that lock us into paths where we stop the action, not facilitate movement. They usually are not the most creative. They are what we're comfortable with, what we've done before. And whenever somebody starts talking to me about what they know for sure, I'm pretty sure they're out of beginner's mind, which is where we want to be, in a neutral place without drama, open-minded, open-hearted, looking for innovation. When people come with a single recommendation and things they know for sure, I know we're outside of innovation, and our recommendations need to be spawning innovation. They need to role model what we preach. And so I want people to come to me with multiple recommendations. One way we could approach this is X. And I want them to be able to say, here's something that's less expensive or time consuming, but also higher risk. And with this recommendation, we'd need to think about how to mitigate these risks. I want, through this tool, to grow my people in mental flexibility and in the ability to see multiple options. Now, at the end of this, I've had two opportunities: one, to coach and impact your mindset; two, to assess you in that coaching, right? But secondly, to agree upon some recommendations. I can say, you know, I'm not a fan of any of those. Can you go back and do a little bit more work and come to me with a recommendation that would, you know, take into account X, Y, and Z? Or I can say any of those are great. I leave it up to you to pursue the one you and your team thinks is best. I've given you permission to be self-sufficient. I may, you know, favor one or the other, but from that recommendation, I make another assignment, which is come back to me with your action plan. I can delegate a recommendation, but I can't delegate unprocessed work. And that's some additional toolkits that I'm in the process of developing when it comes to delegation. So this SBAR is a way for you to come to me with process work. Now, it's also a way that I am transferring true knowledge. I'm transferring codified ways of thinking. I'm helping you grow in thinking like I would like you to think as a leader. This is great development for you, because we're not just talking theory here. We are working real problems together that you've processed. So you're presenting me your best work, not your drama. And then I can call you to greatness from that best work and take you steps further. And that's why I really love this tool, is now we're talking about processed work. So not only does it close the loop and ensure that everybody's kind of in agreement on the next steps, but the process of this gets people disciplined in their business thinking, their business acumen, problem solving, innovation, all of those competencies you've identified that your people need. You send them to classes to get, but we all know development is 70% of the day-to-day interaction, 20% of your coaching, 10% of teaching. This SBAR is easy to teach, and it gets you daily working with people in their development. And so once you are working with me, you're going to have a collection of these SBARs, and it gives me insight into you. It gives us a time to transfer knowledge daily. It's incredibly efficient. It saves me a ton of time. Now, when you come to me and you say, Sai, do you have a second? I say, do you have an SBAR? Because I want you to do the work that will develop you so that I can do the work that will develop you and transfer knowledge and make you more capable. And so people may say, yeah, I have 3 SBARs. Do you have a second? These are so easy. I can say, you know, walk to the parking lot with me. Give me your first SBAR. S, we have 3 new projects. B, relevant background. 2 of them are critical to the strategic plan. Assessment, I've taken a look at the resources available, and you've gone through that assessment. Recommendations are, I think for project 1, I would either free up Alex, or I would get outsourced help in the form of a consultant, or I would take a look at what we have and repurpose it. See, I'm giving you all kinds of options so that we can make some decisions. Now, the decisions that come out of an SBAR lead to action plans, and we also can log those decisions in a decision log. More tools coming your way on how these things fit together. But for today, what I've done is I've ensured that you're bringing your best work to me, that we're not dealing with drama or emotional waste, that we're efficiently moving the baton forward, and that there's daily knowledge transfer. Now, the beauty in using SBARs diligently is I don't have to worry so much about a succession plan. If you've worked with me, you have multiple SBARs. Some of you have 50 of them a year. We're doing these weekly. What I can do with these SBARs is when I want my successor, I can just say, who wants my job? And whoever raises their hand, I just say, bring your SBARs with you. You have 50 of them. You know how I think. I've now made myself completely replaceable. I've also documented our way of thinking. When I onboard new people, I may have my best SBARs that I review with them as an onboarding process. Weekly, if I want to get things tribal, I take a few people's SBARs and I have them present it to the team, and now I've got peer-to-peer coaching. I hope that you fall in love with this tool and use it often. Just want to make sure, if you do have questions, I will look in the questions area and be taking a look for those as we move through. But the SBAR hopefully is a tool that I've convinced you to start using. It's no coincidence that I covered it first on our webinar of tools. The second tool I want to talk about is a tool that I came up with when I wanted to get my one-on-ones out of just you're in my heads and out of the agenda that I put in the book, although that's a great tool. It really focuses what we're going to cover in one-on-ones. But I wanted not to just have snapshots and conversations. I wanted to show over time progress or lack of progress. I wanted us to be seeing visually, me as your leader and you as a direct report, how you were doing in the entirety of your position. And so I created a placemat. It fits best on a legal size sheet of paper. You can blow this up. It's a placemat that I do not want put away in drawers. I want it hung by your cube. I want it on your desk. It is your visual cue on a regular basis, what to prioritize, where to spend your energy, and how you're doing, and the key accountabilities of your job, in the projects that I have you working on, and in your own development. So this is a tool for leaders to use with their direct reports to really visually keep track of how you're doing in all of your responsibilities and development goals. And again, it's a visual tool, and I like to use it weekly. It can be, again, a drive-by. Instead of making people come to your office, stop by their cube, stop by their laptop or their cell phone, in terms of a virtual visit. And the whole piece of this is to create alignment so that we don't have to rely on performance reviews. You want to know how you're doing in your position, just look at your placemat. It's there visually in red, green, or yellow. And so the placemats then fuel any review that you might do, because visually it's there for you. Once you get into words and writing, people start personalizing, they feel picked on, the ego gets involved in defending itself. The ego has a hard time defending itself against a color. And again, this is a way to bypass the ego. So how this works is that you've got a mat for each employee, and I would have the employee own the mat. If I were you, you might just take a picture of the mat after each meeting so that you have an update, or scan that thing and just put it in a confidential file so that you know what their what their progress looks like. It keeps us honest, because we can have individual touch points where you talk to me about the fact you're struggling with getting a project back on track. But once I see 4 weeks of red dots, it starts to speak to me that we've lost a month's progress on the project. If it's in my head, I can manipulate it into our favor. When it's outside of me, black and white or red, green, and yellow visual, it's really a way to visually cue me into, we need to make some corrective movements so that we can get things back on track. And so I love the visual piece of it. The way it's laid out, and you all have in your handout a copy of this placemat, and I'll show you in just a minute, is it's really in 3 sections. And so one section talks about the responsibilities you have, the key accountabilities that you have on a regular basis, the core functions of your job, the core accountables. Now, I don't like job descriptions that tell me what you're going to be doing. I like job descriptions that tell me what you will be delivering, what you're responsible for. And if we can put that not in terms of actions, but in terms of measurements of outcomes, I want those key deliverables to be responsibilities and accountabilities listed in deliverables, not activities, because activities reward for effort, deliverables reward for performance that actually delivered what the organization needed. And that's one section. The next section is, what are your major projects and your project contributions? Because too many people see projects in addition to their day job. And a key point I want to make on this placemat is projects are part of your day job. So a lot of people say, I didn't get to my projects because I didn't have time. What you're telling me is you didn't have time to do your job, and that's about prioritization, not about time. And then I want people's development goals in front of them as well. And I want those aligned to business goals and their career goals. But what are they working on? And that's the next section. So you can see a typical placemat, as I've got up in front of you. You have those key categories. So I've taken your development goals. So let's say a project is preparing us to to capture 20,000 new contacts for the ATD conference. Our responsibility is contracting with all of our clients, making sure that we have everything in place for the services we're delivering for them. Development goals, maybe I want you to get better at the outbound sales process. Okay, so what we do each week, you'll see to the right-hand side that I've divided things out by week. Each week when we are talking, we're talking in real terms about where you're supposed to be on your project plan. That's a double-click document behind this. And we take a look at, is that green, yellow, or red? Green is that you have nailed this thing. Yellow is anything other than you have nailed this thing. Red is that you are have some resiliencies that you need to put in place to be able to put this thing back on track. And it is just a matter, honestly, of a marker or a sticker. That's how simple this thing is. But simplicity is what gets beyond the intellect and the ego to show you in black and white. People see yellow or red on a placemat with their name on it, and it creates urgency that we're looking for. As you go through these, you take any yellow or red and you ask for self-reflection and a plan to reconcile, a plan to course correct. And that's a follow-up meeting. So the touch point is, let's look at the placemat. It keeps us honest about what we're talking about. If you're telling me you don't have time, you're working on something that's not on your placemat, we talk about scope. It's either on the placemat or it's just a few minutes activity. Otherwise, we make a decision. If it's on the placemat, what does it do to those other priorities? It's a way of having a concrete place where you move things on or off that get to conscious decisions. Conscious decisions get us out of victim mindsets. Visibility and consciousness get us into accountability. These are key points to the placemat. Now, as you look at the placemat and we have our markings, it's just a quick visual way to do that. I asked for some quick follow-ups. This isn't elaborate work, but it's commitment to it. This part of your core responsibilities are yellow, and follow up with me for a plan to get back on track here. And then I ask, can I count on you? What's your commitment? Does the plan seem realistic? Because now what I'm doing is I'm telling you that your success is up to you. It's not your circumstances. Your plans are how you're going to succeed in spite of your circumstances. This really brings it home nicely. What I like teams to do when you get to high functioning teams is they hang these things right by their cube for everyone to see. It's not a scarlet letter. It's not a place of shame. It starts the stop judging, start helping, resiliency, crowdsourcing mindset. Let's say that I see somebody on my team is working to grow an outbound calling. That's something I excel in. I walk by and I see that they've got red on that. I don't judge. I say, you know what, I've got a few minutes at 1 o'clock. Why don't you come to my cube? Let's sit down. I'll make a few calls with you. Let's get over this inertia. Let's show you how easy this can be. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just reach out and make some contacts. And it's a way that I get teams working together, because then we can start some bonuses based on and rewards based on teams having placemats that are all green in all accounts, so that people understand that. So any questions out there? I'm looking through my questions, and I'm not seeing some, so I'm going to change my view here. Nicole, do you see some questions out there? Okay. Yep, David, do you see some questions out there?
Yes, so the first question is regarding the SBAR tools. How and when do you introduce the SBAR into the culture, to the company, and to the new employee?
Love it. The first place I like, before you guys roll this thing out in a big way, I like you to get good at this. And so I want some low risk prototyping out there. My recent Cisco engineers taught me about low barrier prototypes. And what that means for you non-engineers is that if I were you, I would take a best employee, and the next time they came to you to work through something, I would say, I just learned this tool. I would have a stack of printer paper on my desk and a Sharpie marker. I would say, I just learned this tool. You're bringing me some great things to work on. Let's together go through, if we had to create what the S is, and I teach you that, I introduce it individually first in my normal conversations with my most accountable people. That way we get really well versed at using it in our business, right? And so I would do that for a while, and I would say, you know what, I think this is something that needs an SBAR. Now that you know it, the next time they brought something up, I'd say, can we get back together in a half hour? Why don't you do a quick SBAR and come to me? This is all about progress, not perfection, okay? So then what I would do is I would start in my one-on-ones a theme of teaching everybody the SBAR, and you make the call whether you do that one-on-one or not. Print out your handout, part of the toolkit. Start people teaching them the SBAR. You can also do this in a group format. I would just be very careful of overusing a tool, because then it becomes a checkbox. Then it becomes just a way of structuring drama, not a way of diffusing drama. So we work with the Willing and Reality-Based Leadership. Once you get the willing in place, you go after the next willing, and pretty soon you have a critical mass. You've activated the silent majority. Then you can roll it out to the masses, and then you can make it a requirement for the way that you do business. Rolling this out with somebody who's low in accountability and a performance issue will be another distraction, another expectation, and that they are frustrating people with. So what you want to do with any new rollout is work with the willing, get people fluent in it, the ones who naturally see the benefit, and then roll it forward. And I would do the same with the placemat, in that I would start to say, I want to start capturing our one-on-one conversations in a visual way. Are you game for that? Because I want to work with somebody who has mostly greens and yellows and a few reds, and I want to show how quickly we can move red to yellow to green. So I start with my most willing. That way, when I roll it out to everybody, I can say, you know, I've got a couple people on your team that we've been piloting this with, and I may turn to somebody and say, Nicole, you've been using this placemat for a couple of months. What was it like at first? And she might say, I hated it, or it was, I felt like you were trying to, you know, micromanage me. And then, you know, as we work through some of the kinks, how do you like it now? And hopefully you're getting some rave reviews. And so instead of, as a leader, rolling something out that you have to manage and that gets you over managing and chasing people down and holding people accountable, the first step in accountability is commitment. People who are willing to do what it takes. When rolling things out, work with the committed first. And then I think you can use these webinars and stuff to roll it out to others, and we'll give you an idea on how to do some of that and access some of this for your team in just a minute. So another question, David?
Yes, this is from Cynthia Dobek. Can you utilize the SBAR concept to advance your own career in HR?
I definitely think you can, and good to have an HR person thinking about selling themselves. Love it. What I have found, and the reason that I stumbled on the SBAR and started to have other people use it, is that it really advanced me in my position with clinicians when they didn't see me as a clinician, because I made very efficient use of time. I was driving for decisions. I was able to highlight that I think from a business place, not just from a therapist or HR place. So I was able to showcase how quickly that I could really move through and and stick to the facts and be out of drama. It made me somebody that when I asked my boss for a minute, they didn't dread it, they didn't put it off. It made me very attractive to them as a great resource, because they saw very quickly that I was a great business thinker, that I had good business acumen, that I was non-personal, non-emotional, low maintenance, high value, low emotional expensiveness. And it just became a really go-to way where my boss and I would get through very quickly a lot of big deals, and we can move on to action. It also was a way that in a meeting, even though I talked to you about using this one-on-one, in a meeting, I could take crazy, insane thinking, put this up and say, folks, what would we say in one sentence or less the situation really is, without drama? Let's just put it up there and clarify it. I could even do this in a meeting to get people back on track. So I'm glad you put that together. Let's take one more question, David, if there is one, before we talk to people about some of the future webinars and some of the great things we have in store for our followers.
Sounds good. Well, there's not really any more questions, but just a couple shout outs. Lisa Sampson is loving it. Bud Pierce said, not really a question, but he wish you would have had this placemat concept 20 years ago. And then from Candace, there has been so much good information presented today. Will we be able to access the recording later? So the answer is yes. And then we also have a couple on-demand options, for you as well.
Yeah, that's like the perfect segue into next steps. First of all, love seeing lots of folks on. For future webinars, let's talk about that first. Then we're going to talk about your recording question. We have purchased 1,000 slots, and so we will be sending out invites. If we're on this list, you'll get the invite to the next webinar, and we'll have 1,000 slots. So we need you to jump on that enrollment link. You have to enroll for each webinar. And we suspect that those may fill up. We had about 230 folks on today. If those fill up, every webinar is recorded, and we will have that available on our on-demand option. For those of you today who have gone all the way through this webinar, what you can expect after we're done is that you will get your code for HRCI or SHRM credits, because this counts for one credit hour of SHRM or HRCI. So you'll get that code to fill in for that piece. You'll also get a link to the recorded webinar. What that means is that you can review this again. You can talk to people about how to use this webinar, but we have an even better way in the future to get you this information and keep it at your fingertips. A lot of you might not realize, but we've also made incredible investments in providing to you an on-demand solution of reality-based leadership. I see you guys with your books tagged 100 different ways till Sunday. It can't be convenient carrying around your dog-eared books. As we bring stuff out, we have an on-demand solution, and it's a virtual training solution, and we call it Reality-Based VT Virtual Training. And David's going to put that up. David, if you want to take back and share your screen, I just want to make people familiar with this, because in the future you will be able to get these webinars on demand. Even if you didn't enroll, we'll email you when there's new things involved in I'm sorry, when there's new things that have been loaded into this on-demand toolkit. So in this virtual on-demand platform, right, you're not tied to a specific date and time. If you're enrolled in this on-demand platform, you'll get a link that says we have a new recorded webinar, and it's flexible. You can learn on your schedule, and you can get credits. So for any of you that are last minute, when you need a bunch of credits at the end of the day, this on the demand has a ton for you. You can get actually on demand up to 19 credit hours for SHRM or HRCI total. And so we also on this on demand have the all new Go, you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, the VT to Go, Reality-Based to Go. That's a phone app, folks. That has 50 videos for coaching on different topics that you can actually play as you coach others. That thing's got tons of interviews I've done, webcasts I've done, all of our old webinars. It's got a lot on it. So that's the mobile app. But we're giving you an opportunity to join us on this on-demand solution, and you will get reality-based leadership, which is over 3 hours of interactive virtual training. You'll eventually get reality-based rules of the workplace, another 3 hours of interactive virtual training. Reality-based inclusion, which is Nicole Price's genius work on inclusion from a reality-based perspective. You'll get the webinars, and I'll personally walk you through your own development plan. And here's how it's going to work, right? You can get on right now for $1, and you're going to have it for the entire month, and you'll have this webinar and reality-based leadership. If you want to stay on, right, then the second month you're going to incur a charge, but it's only $27 a month. Then you'll get reality-based rules. The next month you'll get inclusion. We will keep loading this thing up for over 19 hours of virtual training, and then you'll get all the webinars in your file vault. You'll get emails when those webinar recordings are there. You'll get new course content, and basically that's the option. Now be very clear, all of these webinars are free to you. We do not charge. There's no sales involved in this. If you want online, on-demand access, first month we charge you $1 because we want you to get in there. If you got out after a month, you're going to get this webinar to share, and you're going to get about 6 credit hours free from SHRM to get through that. So get on there and get your credit hours. If you want to stay on and keep moving through this, it's $27 a month. If you have other people after you love this, they can sign up the same way. So I think that covers a lot of that, but for now, for free, you'll get a link to this recorded webinar. When you get your invitation next month, feel free to share that thing to everybody you know. We'll take the first 1,000, we'll record that webinar again, and we'll continue to offer you the on-demand solution as well. David, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, so upon completion in the virtual training side of it, your HRCI and SHRM codes are emailed to you automatically. So for the first month, you get loaded up with a lot of content, and if you want to stick on it, it's only $27 a month, and each month we'll be releasing new additional content. You'll be emailed, you'll be notified, and we keep it very easy. A lot of the people that I've talked to in setting this whole webinar series up have said that this would be a great option for them for the, the point that you don't have to be locked to a specific place or a specific time. And, this is all on demand. You can take it on any device, and, it's pretty flexible. So it's a pretty easy way to have an on-demand option, or like I mentioned, you can continue into the webinar series, which is completely at no cost, and we'll be putting that on every single month. And at the end of this, everyone's going to get invited to the additional 4 webinars that we're putting on in this series.
So, friends, share this stuff, use this stuff. Make sure that you are keeping questions, info@cywakeman.com. Go use this stuff and let me know how it went. You can send in an audio question. You can type a question. If it takes a little explaining, just tape record yourself on your Android or iPhone and attach the audio file. We'll listen to it. I'll try and include some answers to that. If there's other things you want me covering after the Toolkit webinars, and Nicole will be helping out on some of these, just let me know. But until then, I'm here to tell you, you can have a ton of peace at work. Leadership's not that hard. It's just when you're over managing and under leading, you get sent quickly down that rabbit hole. So please try these tools. They're a great way to eliminate emotional waste and to really bring out the best value in talent. So good to connect with all of you guys. We will be at SHRM Annual. We'll be at ATD Annual. come see us. We'll have booths with awesome prizes. So make sure that you come see us at any of those events. And until then, take good care.